The neighbor knocked on Xander Ashford's door at noon with news that would have broken most marriages, but instead it built something better. Xander stood in the doorway of his sawmill house, sawdust still clinging to his sleeves from the morning's work, watching old Gerald from the neighboring farm shift his weight from foot to foot with the discomfort of a man bearing unwelcome intelligence. Gerald had that particular expression people wore when they believed they were doing you a favor by ruining your day. "Thought you ought to know," Gerald said, eyes sliding away toward the tree line. "Saw your wife in town yesterday. She was talking to that orc woman from the eastern settlements." "The one with the twins." Xander waited. He had learned patience in his 34 years, most of it hard-won. "Thing is," Gerald continued, scratching his beard, "they weren't just talking. Your Kira was crying. And those twins, they've got her eyes. Same green, same shape. Boy and a girl, maybe 3 years old." The words hung in the autumn air between them. Xander felt something shift in his chest, not anger but recognition, the way a key feels when it finally meets the right lock. "Appreciate you telling me," Xander said quietly. Gerald blinked, clearly having expected more drama. "You going to do something about it?" "Yes," Xander said and closed the door. He stood in the main room of the house he had built 5 years ago when he first came to this frontier territory, when he was trying to outrun a past that followed him anyway. The house had good bones, solid timber, a stone hearth, windows that let in the morning light. It had been enough for one man nursing old wounds. It had seemed almost excessive when Kira Greenbrook had arrived 3 months ago as his arranged bride. A practical frontier marriage brokered by the Territorial Settlement Office that matched homesteaders with willing orc women seeking safety from the border conflicts. She had been quiet those first weeks, cautious. He had attributed it to the strangeness of their arrangement, the awkwardness of 2 people learning to share space and eventually affection. She cooked with herbs he did not recognize, taught him orc words for common things, laughed at his terrible pronunciation. Her tusks were small and delicate, her ears pointed and expressive, her green skin smooth except for a small scar on her left hand, she said came from a cooking accident years ago. She was not tall, barely reached his shoulder, but she moved with a contained strength that spoke of hard work and harder choices. He had been falling in love with her slowly, carefully, the way a man who had been burned before approaches a fire. He had thought she was doing the same. Now he understood the shadow he sometimes caught in her eyes, the way she occasionally stared toward the eastern road as if expecting someone who never came. She had children. Twins. A boy and a girl, and she had not told him. Xander walked through the house, measuring it with a builder's eye. The bedroom he shared with Kira. The main room with its hearth and table. The small pantry. No room for children. No space that said this was a home where small voices should echo or tiny hands should reach for things on shelves. He had been that careless once before, that blind to what a family needed. 20 years ago he had married young, rashly, to a woman who grew to hate the frontier life he loved. When she left, she took their daughter, barely 2 years old, and disappeared into the eastern cities. He had tried to find them. Had spent years writing letters that went unanswered, following leads that went nowhere, until finally he accepted that some doors, once closed, stayed closed. His daughter would be 22 now, a woman grown, someone he would pass on the street without recognizing. That loss had carved out something in him, left a space nothing else had filled. Until now, apparently. Until twin children who needed a room, Xander went to the workshop attached to the sawmill. He ran the mill with 2 hired men, good workers who knew their business and could manage without him for an afternoon. The mill provided lumber to the growing frontier settlements, and business was steady enough that Xander had stockpiled materials against the coming winter. He began pulling boards, selecting the straightest pine, the smoothest planks he had been saving for furniture or finer work. The house's eastern wall backed onto open space, easy enough to extend. He could frame an addition, get the walls up, the roof on before dark if he worked fast. It would not be fancy, but it would be sound. It would be ready, because Kira's children needed to come home, and they needed to come home to a place that wanted them. He measured twice, cut once, worked with the efficiency of a man who had built half the structures in this settlement. The saw sang through wood. The hammer drove nails true. His hands remembered this work the way a heart remembers beating. Kira returned from the garden an hour later to find him framing the addition. She stopped at the corner of the house, basket of late vegetables balanced on her hip, and stared. Her green skin paled slightly. The basket slipped, but she caught it, knuckles tight around the woven handle. "What are you doing?" Her voice was careful, controlled, but he heard the fear underneath. "Building a room," Xander said, not stopping his work, "for Kellen and Ussold." The basket hit the ground, turnips rolled across the dirt. "How did you?" She stopped. "Gerald." "Gerald," Xander confirmed. He fitted another board, checked it was level, nailed it into place. "Are those their names?" I guessed, but I wanted to be sure before I carved them over the door. Kira made a sound that might have been a laugh or might have been a sob. "You are angry." "No," Xander said. He set down the hammer and turned to face her fully. "I am building a room so your children can come home. There is no anger in that." "Our arrangement," Kira said, and her voice shook now, the control fracturing. "It was for a wife. Not a wife and 2 children. Not someone else's children. I thought if you knew, you would not want me. Or you would send them away. I could not risk them. I could not risk you sending them away." "Whose children are they, if not yours?" Xander asked gently. "You know what I mean." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Their father, he died in the border fighting before they were born. I had no way to keep them and find safety too. My sister took them. I sent her money. I visited when I could. I thought once I was settled here, once you and I knew each other better, I could tell you. I thought I would find the right time." "The right time is now," Xander said. "The room will be finished by sundown. Send word to your sister. Tell her to bring them home." Kira stared at him as if he were speaking a language she did not know. "You want them here." "I want them here," Xander said. It was the simplest truth he knew. "I want you whole and happy, and you cannot be either of those things while your children are living somewhere else wondering why their mother does not come for them." "They are 3 years old," Kira whispered. "They do not understand why I left. They think I abandoned them." "Then we bring them home and we show them different," Xander said. "We show them what a home looks like where everyone stays." Something broke in her then, the careful walls she had been maintaining since she arrived. She crossed the distance between them and pressed her face against his chest, shoulders shaking. He held her, one hand in her dark hair, the other at her back, and felt the sobs that tore through her like they were tearing through him too. "I was so afraid," she said into his shirt. "So afraid you would be like my father, like the men in my clan who said children were burdens, mouths to feed, reasons to stay trapped. I was afraid you would make me choose." "I would never make you choose," Xander said. He tilted her face up so she had to meet his eyes. "I lost a daughter once. I know what that wound feels like. I know it never heals, it just scars over. I would not give that wound to anyone, least of all to you." She searched his face, reading the truth there. "You had a daughter." "I had a daughter," Xander said. "Her name was Lily. Her mother took her east when she was small. I have not seen her in 20 years. I do not even know if she remembers me." Kira's hands came up to frame his face, her touch gentle despite the strength in her fingers. "I did not know." "I do not speak of it often," Xander said. "It is an old pain." But it is part of why this matters. Your twins, they need their mother. They need a home. And I need to be the kind of man who builds that home, who does not turn away from children who need a father. I need to be the man I could not be for Lily. You were kept from her, Kira said. That is different from abandoning her. The wound feels the same, Xander said, but maybe this is how it heals. Maybe this is the second chance. She kissed him then, fierce and salt-tasting from tears, and he kissed her back with the full weight of 3 months of careful courtship giving way to something deeper and more certain. When they broke apart, he returned to the framing and she went to gather the scattered vegetables. But she did not go inside. She stayed, watching him work, asking occasional questions about the construction, fetching tools when he needed them. They worked in a companionable silence that felt like forgiveness, like new beginning. The sun tracked across the sky. Xander framed the walls, raised them with Kira's help holding the beams steady, fitted the roof joists into place. He had built quickly before, but never with this sense of purpose, this urgency that had nothing to do with weather or payment and everything to do with 2 small children who needed to know they were wanted. By mid-afternoon, he had the roof boards on and was sealing them with pitch. The walls still needed chinking, the floor needed finishing, but the room was weatherproof and sound. It would keep the cold out. It would keep children safe. Kira disappeared inside the main house and returned with bread and cheese, cold water from the well. They ate standing up, too restless to sit, too aware of the deadline Xander had set himself. "Tell me about them," Xander said between bites. "Kellen and Ussold, what are they like?" Kira's face transformed, grief and fear giving way to a tentative joy. "Kellen is serious. He watches everything, learns by observation. He does not speak much, but when he does, it matters. Ussold is the opposite, all noise and motion and questions. She climbs everything, fears nothing, drives my sister to distraction daily." "They sound perfect," Xander said. "They are exhausting," Kira said, but she was smiling. "They are loud and messy, and they fight over toys, and they wake up too early. They will turn this quiet house into chaos." "Good," Xander said. "It has been too quiet." He returned to work. The walls needed chinking against the coming winter drafts. He mixed clay and grass, pressed it into the gaps between boards, smoothed it until the seal was tight. Kira worked beside him, her hands quick and sure, her earlier fear settling into something like hope. "My sister will need a day to travel here," Kira said as they worked. "The eastern settlements are not close." "Send word today," Xander said. "I will write the letter if you prefer, or you can go yourself, bring them back." "I will write," Kira said. "I need to explain. I need her to understand this is real, that they have a home now." The afternoon wore on toward evening. Xander built simple bed frames from pine, 1 small bed for each child, mattresses stuffed with straw and covered with canvas until Kira could sew proper ticking. He hung shutters on the window he had cut into the new wall, fitted them so they closed tight against winter storms. He built shelves, low enough for small hands to reach, high enough to be useful. Kira brought blankets from the chest in their bedroom, blankets she must have been saving for this moment she had not believed would come. She spread them over the mattresses, tucked the corners, smoothed imaginary wrinkles. Her hands trembled slightly. "They will think this is a dream," she said softly. "Their own room, their own beds. They have been sharing a pallet in my sister's house, crowded in with her children." "They are your children," Xander said, setting the last shelf in place. "They should never have been anywhere but with you." "I did what I thought I had to do," Kira said, and there was old pain in her voice. "To survive, to find safety. The border wars were getting worse. Orc women alone with children, we were targets. I thought sending them ahead, finding a situation for myself first, was the smart choice. It was the choice you could live with at the time, Xander said, but you do not have to live with it anymore. The sun was lowering toward the western hills when Xander carved the final detail, 2 names in careful letters above the door frame, Kellen and Ussold. The wood was fresh and pale, the letters deep enough to last. Kira stood beside him, reading the names, and fresh tears tracked down her green cheeks. You did this in an afternoon. I had motivation, Xander said. He stepped back, surveying the work. The room was not fancy, but it was solid. 2 beds, 2 shelves, a window with shutters, a door that closed snugly. A rag rug Kira had placed between the beds, hooks on the wall for hanging clothes. Everything a child might need to feel safe, to feel like they belonged. I need to tell you something, Kira said as the sun touched the horizon, about why I was so afraid. Xander waited, giving her space to find the words. In my clan, Kira began slowly, children from previous relationships were seen as shameful, as proof of poor choices, of weakness. Women who came to new marriages with children, they were treated as lesser. Their children were resented, treated as burdens. I saw it happen to my cousin. Her new husband tolerated her son but never loved him, never claimed him. The boy grew up knowing he was unwanted. It broke something in him. I am not your cousin's husband, Xander said quietly. I know that now, Kira said. But I did not know it 3 months ago when I arrived. I did not know what kind of man you were. I only knew I could not risk my children's hearts on hope. You were protecting them, Xander said. I understand that. I should have trusted you sooner, Kira said. You trusted me when you were ready, Xander said. Or rather, when Gerald forced your hand. We can thank him for that later, I suppose. Kira made a sound between a laugh and a sigh. He meant it as cruelty. He thought he was revealing a scandal. He revealed a family, Xander said. Not quite the scandal he imagined. They stood together in the doorway of the new room as the last sunlight faded to dusk. The room smelled of fresh pine and pitch and possibility. Somewhere in the distance, a night bird called. The sawmill was quiet, the day's work complete. I will write the letter tonight, Kira said. I will ask my sister to bring them as soon as she can. I will ride to the eastern settlements myself if it is faster, Xander offered. No, Kira said. Let me write. Let my sister see the words from me that this is real, that I am ready for them to come home. They walked back into the main house together, Kira's hand in Xander's, the new room standing ready behind them. That night by lamplight, Kira wrote the letter. Xander sat across from her at the table, mending harness that did not really need mending, just wanting to be present while she put her words to paper. She wrote slowly, carefully, crossing out lines and starting again, searching for the right way to explain 3 months of silence, 3 months of necessary distance. Finally, she folded the letter, sealed it with wax, and handed it to Xander. Will you take it to the settlement post in the morning? First thing, Xander promised. They went to bed that night and lay in the darkness, not sleeping, both too aware of the change that had shifted the foundation of their marriage. Kira's head rested on Xander's shoulder, her breath warm against his neck. Are you frightened? Kira asked into the quiet. Of what? Xander asked. Of becoming a father again, Kira said. Of taking on children who are not yours by blood. Xander thought about that. Lily was mine by blood and I still lost her. Blood does not guarantee anything. Choice does. I choose this. I choose them. I choose you. They will not call you father at first, Kira said. They do not know you. It will take time. I have time, Xander said. I have all the time they need. Kira shifted, turning to face him in the darkness. I love you. I do not think I have said that clearly yet. But I love you, Xander Ashford. Not just because you built a room, but because of why you built it. Because you understand what it means to lose a child, and you chose to prevent that loss instead of hiding from the risk of it. I love you too, Xander said, and meant it with every part of himself that was not still caught in the past, and even with those parts that were. I think I have been loving you since the day you arrived and mispronounced my name and refused to be embarrassed about it. She laughed, soft and wet with tears. You said it did not matter. It did not matter, Xander said. Nothing matters except that you are here and soon your children will be here too. They made love then, slowly and tenderly, sealing the promises they had spoken, and afterward they slept tangled together with a peace neither had felt before. Morning came cold and clear. Xander rode to the settlement post with Kira's letter, paid for fast delivery, and returned to find Kira already cleaning the house with a nervous energy that spoke of anticipation and fear in equal measure. The days that followed were strange, suspended, waiting. Kira cooked enough food for an army and then sat down to wait, restless. Xander tried to work at the mill but found himself coming back to the house at odd hours, checking the room, making small improvements. He carved wooden toys, a horse and a doll, and left them on the beds. He reinforced the shelves. He built a small step stool so short legs could reach things easier. You are worse than I am, Kira said on the third day, watching him adjust a shelf that was already perfectly level. I want it right, Xander said. It is right, Kira assured him. It is perfect. You built them a perfect room in a single afternoon and you have been perfecting it ever since. They will love it. They will love you. I hope so, Xander said, and heard the vulnerability in his own voice. Kira crossed to him, took the tools from his hands and held those hands in her own. They will love you because I will teach them to see what I see. A man who builds rooms for children he has never met. A man who chooses family instead of running from it. Your sister might not bring them, Xander said, voicing the fear he had not spoken. She might think this is a mistake. She might want to keep them safe with her. She will bring them, Kira said firmly. She has been waiting for this since the day I left. She loves them, but she knows they belong with me. She will bring them. 4 days after the letter was sent, a wagon appeared on the eastern road. Kira saw it first. She was hanging laundry and her hands stilled on the wet fabric, her whole body going rigid with attention. Xander, she called, voice tight. Xander, someone is coming. He came out of the mill at a run, saw the wagon, saw Kira standing frozen like a woman facing either her greatest hope or her worst fear. He crossed to her side, took her hand. Breathe, he said. I am breathing, Kira said, but she was not really. The wagon drew closer. It was driven by an orc woman older than Kira, with the same green skin but a harder set to her jaw, a more weathered look. Beside her on the bench sat 2 small figures, a boy and a girl, both with their mother's green skin and dark hair, Kellen and Ussold. Kira made a sound, wordless and broken, and started walking toward the wagon, then running. She ran across the yard as the wagon pulled to a stop, and before it fully halted, she was reaching up, pulling the children down into her arms, holding them so tightly that Xander could see the fierceness of it even from a distance. The children clung to her, the boy silent and wide-eyed, the girl crying and talking all at once in a rapid tumble of words Xander could not make out from where he stood. He approached slowly, giving them space for reunion, giving himself time to steady the sudden overwhelming surge of emotion that threatened to knock him sideways. These were Kira's children. These were the twins she had left behind, the secret she had carried, the missing pieces of her heart. And now they were here and they were real, and Xander was going to be their father. The weight of it hit him all at once, terrifying and right. Kira's sister climbed down from the wagon, moving with the stiffness of someone who had traveled a long way. She was watching Kira with the twins, her expression complex, relief and sadness and something like envy mixed together. Xander reached her first, offered his hand. "I am Xander Ashford." She took his hand, her grip firm. "I am Mara Greenbrook, Kira's sister. I brought the children." "Thank you," Xander said. Mara studied him with sharp eyes, assessing. "You built them a room." "I did," Xander said. "In one afternoon, according to the letter," Mara said. "The letter was accurate," Xander said. "Why?" Mara asked bluntly. Xander met her eyes steadily. "Because they needed a home and I could build one. And because Kira needed her children and I could give them to her." "Just like that," Mara said, skeptical. "Just like that," Xander confirmed. Mara looked past him to where Kira was kneeling in the dirt, holding both children, all three of them crying now. "She was terrified you would reject her, reject them." "I know," Xander said. "And you did not," Mara said. "I did not," Xander said. "I will not. They are home now." "All three of them." Mara's expression softened slightly. "I have raised them for 3 years, fed them, clothed them, loved them as my own. It will be strange letting them go." "You are not letting them go," Xander said gently. "You are giving them back to their mother. That is different. And you are welcome here any time. They should know their aunt, know the woman who kept them safe." Mara blinked, surprised. "You would allow that?" "They are children, not prisoners," Xander said. "Of course you can visit. Of course they should know you." Something in Mara's expression cracked then, the hard protective shell giving way to simple grief. "I will miss them terribly." "I know," Xander said. "But you did the right thing bringing them home." Mara nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Kira stood, a child clinging to each hand, and walked them over to where Xander and Mara stood. Up close, Xander could see the details. Kellen had his mother's serious eyes, dark green and watchful. He held himself carefully, protectively, one hand tight around his mother's fingers. Usold was smaller, rounder, with the same green skin but a more open expression. She was staring at Xander with frank curiosity, no fear in her gaze. "Kellen, Usold," Kira said, her voice shaking slightly. "This is Xander. He is my husband. He is going to take care of us." Kellen studied Xander in silence. Usold stepped forward, boldness overcoming caution. "Mama says you built us a room." "I did," Xander said, crouching down to her level. "Would you like to see it?" "Yes," Usold said immediately. Kellen looked at his mother, seeking permission or reassurance. Kira nodded. "It is safe. You can go look." Xander straightened and led the way around the house to the new addition. The twins followed, Usold eagerly, Kellen more cautiously. Kira and Mara trailed behind. He opened the door to the room, stood aside to let them enter. Usold gasped, a child's sound of pure delight. She ran inside, touching everything, the beds, the shelves, the carved names above the door. "This is ours. Really ours, really yours," Xander confirmed. Kellen entered more slowly, his gaze moving over the room with that same careful observation. He found the wooden horse Xander had carved, picked it up, turned it over in his small hands. "I made that for you," Xander said quietly. "And the doll is for Usold if she wants it." Usold had already found the doll, was clutching it to her chest with fierce possession. "Mine," she declared. "Yours," Xander agreed. Kellen looked up at him, still holding the horse. "Thank you," he said, the words formal and careful. "You are welcome," Xander said, and felt something in his chest tighten and warm at the same time. The children explored the room with the intense focus only children could manage, finding every detail, claiming every space. Kira stood in the doorway watching them, tears streaming down her face, making no effort to hide them. Mara stood beside her sister, one hand on Kira's shoulder. "You found a good man." "I did," Kira whispered. "They will be happy here," Mara said. "They will," Kira agreed. Usold was already bouncing on one of the beds, testing it, giggling as it creaked under her weight. Kellen sat on the other bed more carefully, still holding the wooden horse, his expression thoughtful. "Can we stay?" Ussold asked, looking at her mother with sudden anxiety as if this might all disappear. "Can we stay here?" "Yes," Kira said, crossing the room to kneel beside her daughter. "Yes, my heart, you can stay here. This is your home now, our home." "Forever," Ussold pressed. "Forever," Kira promised. Ussold threw her arms around her mother's neck, and Kellen slid off his bed to join them, the three of them tangled together in an embrace that looked like healing. Xander stepped back, giving them space, and found Mara beside him. "You have a good heart," Mara said quietly. "I did not believe it when I read the letter. I thought it was too good to be true, thought there must be a catch. But seeing this, seeing them in that room you built, I believe it now." "There is no catch," Xander said. "Just a family that needed to be together." "Kira told them stories about you," Mara said. "About the man she married, the man who ran the sawmill, the man who was kind to her. But she never told them you might be their father. She did not dare hope for that." "I want to be," Xander said, "if they will have me, in time." "They will," Mara said. "Give them time, but they will." The afternoon passed in a blur of settling in. Mara helped the children unpack the small bundles of belongings they had brought, clothes and a few precious toys, everything they owned fitting into 2 sacks. Kira cooked a feast, too much food for 5 people, but the table felt full and right with all of them gathered around it. Ussold chattered through the meal, asking questions, telling stories, her voice bright and relentless. Kellen ate quietly, watching everything, occasionally touching his mother's arm as if to reassure himself she was real. Xander listened and observed, learning them the way he once learned wood, studying the grain and knots to understand how something was made. Ussold was fearless and loud, yes, but underneath was a child who needed constant reassurance that she was heard, that she mattered. Kellen was quiet, but his silence was watchful intelligence, not absence. He was the child who would notice everything and speak only when speech was necessary. After the meal, Mara prepared to leave. The eastern settlements were a day's travel, and she wanted to make some distance before full dark. She hugged the twins, long and hard, whispering things to them that Xander could not hear. Ussold cried, clinging to her aunt's neck. Kellen stood rigid, fighting tears, his small jaw set. "I will visit," Mara promised them both. "In a few months when the weather holds. And you can write me letters. Your mother will help you." "I do not know how to write," Ussold said. "Then you will learn," Mara said, "and you will tell me everything about your new home." She hugged Kira last, the 2 sisters holding each other in the way of people who had survived hard things together. "Take care of them," Mara said. "I will," Kira promised. "And let him take care of you," Mara added, glancing at Xander. "I will," Kira said again, softer. Mara climbed onto the wagon, took up the reins, and drove away down the eastern road. The twins waved until she was out of sight, then stood in the yard looking lost. "Would you like to see the sawmill?" Xander offered. Ussold brightened immediately. Kellen looked uncertain. "It is loud," Xander warned, "but interesting. Lots of big machines that cut wood into boards." "I want to see," Ussold declared. Kellen nodded slowly. Xander led them to the mill, showed them the great saw blade, the stacks of lumber, the mechanisms that powered the cutting. He explained how trees became boards, how boards became houses and furniture and tools. Ussold asked 1,000 questions. Kellen watched everything with that careful intensity, occasionally touching things gently, reverently. "Can I work here when I am big?" Ussold asked. "If you want to," Xander said. "I want to," Ussold said decisively. "What about you?" Xander asked Kellen. Kellen shrugged, non-committal, but his eyes kept returning to the wood, the grain and color of it. They returned to the house as the sun was setting. Kira had prepared the room for bedtime, lit a small lamp, turned down the blankets. The twins were exhausted from travel and emotion, rubbing their eyes, stumbling over their own feet. Kira helped them change into sleeping clothes, tucked them into their beds. Usold was asleep almost instantly. Kellen fought it longer, his eyes drifting closed and snapping open again as if afraid this would all disappear if he stopped watching. "Sleep," Kira whispered, stroking his hair. "I will be here when you wake up." "Promise," Kellen mumbled. "Promise," Kira said. His eyes closed and stayed closed. Kira sat between the beds for a long time, watching them sleep, her face a study in wonder and relief. Finally, she stood, left the lamp burning low and joined Xander in the main room. She walked into his arms and stood there, silent, letting him hold her. "They are home," she said finally, voice muffled against his chest. "They are home," Xander agreed. "I do not know how to thank you," Kira said. "You do not need to thank me," Xander said. "This is what family does. We make space for each other." "You made space in one afternoon," Kira said. "Most people take years to make that kind of room in their hearts." "I had years of emptiness to fill," Xander said. "Maybe that made it easier." They stood together in the quiet house, listening to the small sounds of children sleeping, and it felt like something had been made right, some old wrong corrected. The days that followed were an adjustment. The house that had been quiet became loud with Usold's constant chatter and questions. Meals that had been simple affairs for two became complicated negotiations with Kellen's pickiness and Usold's refusal to eat anything green. Morning started earlier with children who woke at dawn. Nights ended later with bedtime routines and stories and requests for water and one more hug. Xander learned patience he did not know he possessed. He learned that Usold needed to be heard and Kellen needed quiet spaces. He learned that both of them needed consistency, routine, the security of knowing what came next. He learned that fatherhood was not grand gestures but small repeated acts of showing up, being present, choosing them over and over again. Kellen warmed to him slowly, carefully, like ice melting in spring. He would stand near Xander while he worked, watching, occasionally asking questions in that serious voice. Xander learned to narrate what he was doing, explaining the work without being asked, giving Kellen the information he craved without forcing interaction. One day, 2 weeks after they arrived, Kellen climbed onto the bench beside Xander and asked, "Can you teach me to carve?" It was the longest sentence he had spoken directly to Xander. "I can," Xander said, keeping his voice even despite the surge of feeling in his chest. "Let me find you a piece of soft wood and a small knife." They spent the afternoon with Kellen learning to shape wood, his small hands guided by Xander's larger ones, the knife moving carefully through pine. Kellen was patient, methodical, content to work slowly. By evening he had carved a rough bird, lopsided and awkward but unmistakably his. "That is good work," Xander said. Kellen studied the bird critically. "It is not very good." "It is your first," Xander said. "First things are never perfect, but you will make more and each one will be better." Kellen looked up at him, something shifting in his expression. "Will you keep teaching me?" "As long as you want to learn," Xander promised. "I want to learn," Kellen said. That night, as Xander tucked him into bed, Kellen said, "Xander?" "Yes," Xander said. "Can I call you something else?" Kellen asked, voice small. Xander's heart stopped. "What would you like to call me, Papa?" Kellen whispered. "If that is all right." Xander had to close his eyes for a moment, fighting the sudden burn of tears. When he trusted his voice, he said, "That would be more than all right." "Okay," Kellen said. "Good night, Papa." "Good night, Kellen," Xander managed. He left the room before the tears could fall, found Kira in the kitchen, and held her while he shook with the force of feelings he had thought long dead. She held him back, understanding without words what had happened, what it meant. Isolde took longer. She was friendly to Xander from the start, but it was the friendliness of a child who made friends easily, not the deep trust her brother was building. She called him Xander, asked him for things, demanded his attention and time, but there was no special weight to it, until the day she fell. She was climbing a tree against Kira's warnings, because she was Isolde and warnings meant nothing to her fearless heart. The branch broke. She fell 10 feet and landed hard, breaking her arm. Her screaming brought everyone running. Xander reached her first, saw the wrong angle of her arm, felt his stomach drop. He scooped her up as gently as he could, her screams piercing his ears, and ran for the house. Kira was already preparing supplies, her face pale but her hands steady. They had no doctor close, but Kira had field medicine training from her time in the border territories. She set the bone while Xander held Isolde still, the child's screams changing to sobs, her good hand clutching his shirt with desperate strength. "I know it hurts," Xander said into her hair. "I know, sweetheart, I know, but your mother is fixing it. She is making it better." "It hurts," Isolde sobbed. "I know," Xander said again. "I have got you. I am not letting go." Kira finished setting the bone, splinted the arm, wrapped it tight. Isolde had gone limp with pain and exhaustion, still crying but softer now, hiccuping. "All done," Kira said gently. "You were very brave." "I was not brave," Isolde said. "I was scared." "You can be both," Xander said. "Brave is being scared and getting through it anyway." Isolde turned her face into his shoulder and cried until she fell asleep, still clutching his shirt. He carried her to bed, laid her down carefully, arranged pillows to support her splinted arm. Kira sat beside her, stroking her hair, keeping watch. "She will be all right," Kira said quietly. "I know," Xander said, "but it was close." "Children fall," Kira said. "They break bones and get sick and scare us half to death. It is what they do." "I had forgotten," Xander admitted, "how terrifying it is to love someone small and breakable." "You remember now," Kira said. "I remember now," Xander agreed. Isolde woke in the night, crying for him. Not for her mother, for him. Xander went to her, sat on her bed, let her climb into his lap despite the awkwardness of the splinted arm. "It still hurts," she whispered. "I know," Xander said. "It will hurt for a while, but it will heal." "Will you stay?" Isolde asked. "I will stay as long as you need me," Xander promised. "I need you," Isolde said, and then, so quietly he almost missed it, "Papa." Xander closed his eyes, overwhelmed again by the simple miracle of being needed, being chosen, being called father by a child who had every reason not to trust that easily. "I am here," he whispered back. "I am here, Isolde." She fell back asleep in his arms, and he sat there in the dark room holding her, feeling the weight and warmth of her, thinking about second chances and rooms built by Sundown, and how sometimes the things we have lost come back to us in different forms. The autumn deepened toward winter. Isolde's arm healed cleanly. The twins settled into routines, into the rhythms of this new life. They learned the farm, the mill, the boundaries of what was theirs. They learned Xander's moods and Kira's cooking, and the way sound carried in the valley. They grew comfortable, secure, loud and messy, and exactly what the house needed to become a home. But there was still one piece missing, one wound not fully healed. It was Kira who finally said it, late one night when the children were asleep and the house was quiet again. "You should try to find her," Kira said. Xander was mending a harness that actually did need mending this time. He looked up, confused. "Find who?" "Your daughter," Kira said. "Lily, you should try to find her." "It has been 20 years, Xander said. "She will not remember me. She probably does not even know my name." "So you give her the chance to know it now," Kira said. "You give her the choice you never had before." What if she does not want to be found? Xander asked. What if she has a life that does not include me and I am just disrupting it? Then at least you tried, Kira said. At least she knows you tried, that you did not stop caring, did not stop looking. Xander set down the harness. I do not even know where to start. Start with the cities where her mother was from, Kira said. Write letters, ask questions. You found a way to build a room in a day, you can find a way to reach a daughter in 20 years. Why now? Xander asked. Why does this matter now? Because you are a father again, Kira said gently. Because Kellen and Ussold call you Papa, and you have made space in your heart for children who were not yours by blood. And because somewhere there is a woman who was yours by blood, and maybe she has been waiting for you as long as you have been waiting for her. The truth of it hit him, undeniable. I would not know what to say. Start with I am sorry and I never stopped loving you, Kira said. The rest will follow. So Xander wrote a letter. He addressed it to Lily Ashford, sent copies to every major city in the Eastern Territories, enclosed a description of himself and his circumstances and a simple message. I am your father. I have been looking for you for 20 years. If you want to know me, I am here. He did not expect an answer. He sent the letters and tried not to hope, tried to focus on the family he had now, the children who needed him daily. But hope, once planted, is hard to kill. Winter came, snow falling heavy in the mountains, the mills slowing as travel became difficult. The family settled into the quiet months, into evenings by the fire and stories before bed, and the particular coziness of being warm and safe while the world outside was cold and wild. Kellen learned to carve better. His birds became recognizable, then beautiful. Ussold learned to read, fast and hungrily, demanding new books constantly. They both grew, shooting up so fast Xander had to adjust the shelves in their room to accommodate their changing reach. They called him Papa without hesitation now. They ran to him when they were hurt or scared or happy. They climbed into his lap, demanded his attention, trusted him with the casual certainty children reserve for the people they know will catch them when they fall. Xander learned that fatherhood the second time was no less terrifying than the first, but it was infinitely more rewarding because he was present for it, because he chose it daily, because he had built the room they slept in and earned the right to tuck them into bed. And then, in the deep cold of midwinter, a letter arrived. It was addressed to Xander Ashford in an unfamiliar hand, postmarked from one of the eastern cities. He opened it with shaking hands while Kira watched, the children playing noisily in their room, unaware that the world was about to shift again. The letter was short. My name is Lily Ashford Merchant. I received your letter through a friend who knew my mother's family. I do remember you, though the memories are vague and childlike. I remember being carried on your shoulders. I remember your voice. My mother told me you did not want us, that you abandoned us for the frontier. I would like to hear your side of the story. If you are willing, I will travel to meet you in the spring. Xander read it 3 times, 4 until the words blurred. Then he handed it to Kira. She read it, her expression softening. She remembers you. Barely, Xander said. She wants to know you, Kira said. That is more than barely. Her mother lied to her, Xander said, anger and grief mixing. Told her I abandoned them. And now you can tell her the truth, Kira said. Now you can show her who you really are. What if the truth is not enough? Xander asked. What if she decides her mother was right, that I am not worth knowing? Then at least you gave her the choice, Kira said. But I do not think that will happen. I think she will come here and she will see you with Kellen and Ussold and she will understand what kind of father you are. What kind of father you would have been to her if you had been given the chance. Xander sat down heavily, the letter clutched in his hand. I am terrified. I know, Kira said. She came to him, wrapped her arms around him from behind, rested her chin on his shoulder. "But you will do it anyway. Because that is what you do. You show up even when you are scared. You build rooms for children who need them. You open your heart even when it might break. That is who you are." He covered her hands with his, held on. "I do not deserve you." "You deserve everything good that comes to you," Kira said fiercely. "Stop arguing with happiness." That night, Xander wrote back to Lily. He told her the truth, all of it. How her mother had hated the frontier life. How she had left while he was away on a timber run, taken Lily and disappeared. How he had spent years searching, writing letters, following leads that went nowhere. How he had finally accepted that some losses were permanent. He told her about Kira, about Kellen and Ushold, about the life he had built in the years since. He told her he understood if she was angry, if she needed time, if she decided not to come after all. But he hoped she would give him the chance to know her, to be part of her life in whatever way she was comfortable with. He sent the letter and waited. Spring came slowly that year, the snow reluctant to melt, winter holding on with cold fingers. But eventually the roads cleared and the world turned green and travelers began moving again through the frontier territories. Lily's second letter arrived in early spring. She was coming. She would arrive within the month. The house became a flurry of preparation. Kira insisted on spring cleaning everything, making the house perfect for this daughter who was coming home after 20 years. Xander built another small room, an addition to the addition, a space for Lily if she wanted to stay, though he did not dare hope she would. The twins sensed something important was happening, though they did not fully understand what. Kellen asked careful questions. Ushold demanded to know everything at once and then forgot half of it and asked again. "You have another daughter," Ushold said, trying to work through the concept. "A big daughter." "Yes," Xander said. "Where was she?" Ushold asked. "Far away," Xander said, "living in the east. I have not seen her since she was very small." "Why not?" Ushold pressed. "It is complicated," Xander said, which was the answer adults gave when the truth was too hard to explain to a child. "Will she like us?" Kellen asked quietly. It was the question that mattered, the one Xander had been afraid to voice himself. "I hope so," Xander said honestly. "I hope she will see what a good family we have and want to be part of it." "What if she does not?" Kellen asked. "Then we will be sad," Xander said. "But we will still have each other. That does not change." Kellen nodded, satisfied with that answer. The day Lily was supposed to arrive, Xander could not settle. He worked at the mill for an hour, came back to the house, worked on a project he did not need to finish, came back inside. Kira finally sent him to chop wood just to give him something to do with his hands. He was splitting logs when the wagon appeared on the eastern road. His hands stilled on the axe. He set it down carefully, wiped his palms on his trousers, and waited. The wagon drew closer. The driver was a hired man, but the passenger was a woman, young, maybe 22 or 23, with dark hair and a face that Xander recognized from his own mirror. She had his eyes, his jawline, the same way of holding her shoulders. She was his daughter, Lily, grown and real and here. The wagon stopped. Lily climbed down, moving with careful precision, her gaze finding Xander and holding there. For a long moment they just looked at each other, 2 decades of absence stretching between them. Then Xander said, "Lily." "Father," she said, and her voice shook. He crossed to her, not running but walking steadily, closing the distance. Up close he could see she had been crying, that her eyes were red-rimmed and uncertain. She was dressed for travel, practical clothes, but she carried herself with a kind of wounded dignity that broke his heart. "Thank you for coming," Xander said. "I almost did not," Lily admitted. "I was afraid." "I am afraid too," Xander said. That surprised her. "You are terrified," Xander said. I have been waiting 20 years to see you again, and now that you are here, I have no idea what to say except that I am sorry. I am sorry I could not find you. I am sorry you grew up thinking I did not want you. I am sorry for every birthday and every moment I missed." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Mother said you did not care, that you chose the frontier over us." "I chose the frontier because it was my home," Xander said. "But I never chose it over you. I wanted you both to stay. When she left, I tried to find you. I wrote letters for years. None of them were answered." "She never told me," Lily whispered. "I know," Xander said. "And I am sorry you had to find out this way, but I need you to know the truth. I never stopped being your father. I never stopped loving you." Lily made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "I have been so angry for so long. At you, at her, at everything. And now I am here and you are saying everything I needed to hear and I do not know what to feel." "You can feel angry," Xander said. "You can feel anything you need to feel. There is no wrong answer here, Lily." She looked past him to the house, to where Kira had appeared in the doorway with the twins peeking out from behind her skirts. "You have a family." "I do," Xander said. "Would you like to meet them?" Lily hesitated, then nodded. Xander led her to the house. Kira came out to meet them, her expression warm and open. "You must be Lily," Kira said. "Welcome. We are very glad you came." Lily looked at her, at the green skin and tusks and pointed ears, and something complicated crossed her face. "You are an orc." "I am," Kira said simply. "And you married my father," Lily said. 3 years ago," Kira confirmed. "These are my children, Kellen and Usold. Your father is their father now, too." Lily looked at the twins, who were staring at her with open curiosity. "Hello, hello," Kellen said seriously. "You are our sister." Usold asked. "Half-sister, I suppose," Lily said. "That is still sister," Usold said decisively. "Do you want to see our room? Papa built it in one day." "Papa," Lily repeated, her voice catching on the word. "That is what we call him," Kellen said. "Is that all right?" Lily looked at Xander, her expression raw. "They call you Papa." "They do," Xander said quietly. "You built them a room," Lily said. "I did," Xander said. "In one afternoon when I found out they needed a home." "You built me a room too," Lily said, "and it was not quite a question." "I did," Xander said. "You do not have to stay in it. You do not have to stay at all if you do not want to, but it is there if you need it." Lily closed her eyes, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I do not understand you." "What do you mean?" Xander asked. "Mother said you were cold," Lily said. "Distant. Uninterested in being a father. But you build rooms for children in a day. You take in an orc woman and her twins without hesitation. You wrote me letters for years even when they went unanswered. Nothing about you matches what I was told. People are complicated," Xander said. "Maybe your mother only saw one side of me. Maybe that side was real too back then. People change. Loss changes them. I spent 20 years learning how to be the kind of father I should have been to you, and when I got a second chance with Kellen and Usold, I did not waste it." "I wish you had been given that chance with me," Lily said, her voice breaking. "So do I," Xander said. "But I have this chance now, if you want it." Lily opened her eyes, looked at him with her mother's nose and his eyes, and a lifetime of hurt and hope mixed together. "I want it. I am angry and confused, and I do not know how this works, but I want it." "Then we will figure it out together," Xander said. "As slow as you need, as careful as you need. There is no rush. You are here now. That is enough." Usold, impatient with all the emotional adult conversation, grabbed Lily's hand. "Come see our room. It has our names carved over the door." Lily let herself be pulled along, laughing through tears, and Xander followed with Kira and Kellen, this strange assembled family moving together into the house. Lily stayed for dinner, then for the night, then for a week. The week became 2 weeks, then a month. She settled into the room Xander had built, made it her own with small touches. Books and a shawl her mother had made before she died, little pieces of the life she had lived before. She and Xander talked for hours, rebuilding the relationship that had been stolen from them. She told him about her childhood, her mother's bitterness, the way she had grown up feeling abandoned and unwanted. He told her about his search, the letters he had written, the leads he had followed, the years of not knowing if she was alive or dead. It was not easy. There were arguments, moments of anger where old wounds opened and bled fresh. But they kept talking, kept showing up for each other, kept choosing to bridge the gap. Lily fell in love with the twins almost immediately. Isolde adopted her as a combination big sister and playmate, demanding her attention constantly. Kellen was more reserved, but he warmed to her the way he warmed to everything, slowly and thoroughly, until one day he asked her to teach him to read better, and she understood she had been accepted. And Kira, who had orchestrated this reunion without ever forcing it, became Lily's unlikely friend. They were nothing alike, the human woman raised in eastern cities, and the orc woman raised on the frontier, but they shared a love for Xander and a determination to make this fractured family whole. Summer came, warm and bright. The mill ran full tilt with good weather for transport. The garden grew lush with vegetables. The house was loud and full and chaotic in the best possible way. One evening in late summer, Xander found himself on the porch watching the sunset with Kira beside him and all three of his children playing in the yard. Lily was teaching Isolde to braid flowers. Kellen was carving, his latest bird taking shape under patient hands. "Are you happy?" Kira asked quietly. Xander thought about it. 20 years ago he had lost a daughter and thought that wound would define the rest of his life. 3 years ago he had married a woman he barely knew in a practical arrangement that should have stayed practical. 1 year ago he had built a room in a single afternoon for children who became his in every way that mattered. And now all of them were here, all the scattered pieces pulled together into something that looked like a family, messy and complicated and more beautiful than anything he could have built with his hands alone. "Yes," Xander said, "I am happy." "Good," Kira said, and leaned her head on his shoulder. Isolde shrieked with laughter at something Lily said. Kellen looked up from his carving to smile at them. The sun painted everything gold and warm. Xander thought about rooms built by sundown and doors opened at just the right moment. He thought about secrets revealed, and wounds healed and second chances that came in unexpected forms. He thought about how sometimes the family you lose comes back to you, and sometimes the family you gain was waiting all along, and sometimes the difference between the two matters less than the simple fact of being together. Lily caught his eye across the yard and smiled, tentative but real, and Xander smiled back. This was home. This was family. This was the life he had built one careful choice at a time, one afternoon of backbreaking work, one letter sent into the void that finally found its destination. It was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything.